listening to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game by equipping you with the tools you need to differentiate yourself in the marketplace.
Listening to the podcast is only going to get you so far. Why not take your game to the next level? Check out Power Producer Basecamp on killingcommercial.com today.
Tactical skills that'll help you provide deliverable value to your clients and prospects.
Want to have the sweet swag that we send out from the Power Producers podcast for your clients and employees? Check out policyt.com today.
And action items that you can provide to take your prospects and clients to the next level.
Want to create an online presence but don't know how to start? Check out crushingcontent.com. It's done for you, so all you have to do is show up.
This is Power Producer Shop Talk, production redefined. Are you ready to feel the power?
You want to make sure you have some level of critical mass that you're going to be able to operate off of for a while. So, if you're in trucking or transportation, those things are all over the place. If you just figure out your lead system and build it and continue to feed it and refine it, you're never going to have to build that again. You're just going to sit there and constantly work on trying to get in front of people, get opportunities to present, and ultimately close business. But if you only do enough to get you through the year, you're going to be right back in the same boat next year, the year after, and the year after, which is why it makes more sense to go as deep as you can and do it right the first time. It's literally like my grandfather telling me, David, dadgummit, you measure twice, you cut once, you do it right the first time. It's no different in the prospecting. And so that's one piece of it. Now, the way those numbers translate, it was $457,000 in agency commissions in the first 12 months. Okay. Now that wasn't including the 3 months that it took for me to build the actual pipeline. Once it was up and running and we're actually producing. The next year, it was almost equivalent to that. And we just kept going on and on. Now, I was only at that agency for 2.5 years. For a variety of reasons, I left and ended up starting from scratch again. And so here we are starting all over again because everything I had was protected by my non-compete, blah, 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 right? So I tell you this because I feel like a lot of people are still out there wanting to be generalists. You're out there trying to, throw everything against the wall to see what sticks. I don't necessarily criticize a newer producer from doing that because sometimes that's what you have to do to figure out where you want to go. But what you can't do is just keep doing that. You have to, if you're going to try and be a generalist and to then narrow it down, you have to get to a point where you're able to look at this and start seeing trends in the stuff that you have written and then take it and run with it. There are a lot of people out there right now, and I'll go into research a little bit more in a second, but I need to finish this thought pattern. There are a lot of people out there right now that if you read all the noise on the internet are going to tell you that content marketing is dead, cold calling is dead, do this, do that. I would caution you to think for yourselves, right? We can't trust the media. I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on. Both sides lie. We need to consume information and process it and think for ourselves. This is no different. Most of the time that you see people saying stuff like that, it's because they have a product to sell that's going to benefit them if they can get you to believe their narrative. That's it. Bottom line, every single time you can go back. So one of the ones that I see right now is content marketing is dead. Paid ads are dead. Focus on getting leads from ChatGPT, this, that, and the other. Well, last time I checked, if you don't have content on the internet, how are you going to get marketing or leads from ChatGPT? That's where it's pulling it from. You still have to use the same principles. It's just they're packaging their message in a different way. Now, I do agree with them. You will get leads from ChatGPT. We are getting them in our agency right now. And so I think that that's a something to be thinking about. And the other thing that I would do is I would challenge each of you to go into ChatGPT and ask it who the best agencies are for this specific industry or this specific type of industry or coverage or whatever in your area, and identify who's doing this stuff well and then go do some recon on your competition and figure out what you can do differently than them. It'll help you narrow it down a little bit. But one of the things I would challenge you to do as you're going through this process, and this is something that is relatively new in the last 6 months, is use that deep research function on ChatGPT. It is one of the best friends you could possibly have when you're looking to gain in-depth knowledge of stuff. And so if you take what I said about getting the leads list, figuring out who these people are and everything else, that is a very strategic way for me to do outbound. Okay, that's all about cold calling on the phone, marketing drops, and that kind of stuff. But what about inbound, which didn't exist back then? Inbound was not a thing. I mean, MySpace may have been around, but I don't think Facebook was anywhere close to mainstream until like 2007, 2008. And so when you think about it, you can go in and you can get really deep. Now, I've told the story a couple of times. I don't know if I've talked about it on the call yet. I know I talked about it a little bit about at Producers in Paradise, but I'm going to share the story again because there's people on here that probably haven't heard it. But we signed a contract with Main Street America not that long ago. And one of the things that we did when our rep came in with the underwriter was we asked the questions I told you guys that you need to ask. And what we found out was that they really like pressure washers was one of them, landscape companies was another one, and pool cleaning services was another one. Now, I want you to think about those things for a minute, because when we talk about identifying trends, this is what you need to do. You need to look at what do those three things in common. So does anybody want to take any kind of a guess as to what I saw when I looked at those three industries? It's not a wrong answer. Seasonal in New York, not in Tampa, Florida. But that's a good pickup for sure. All right, so I'm not going to pretend like I knew this right up front. I've learned this after working with them as we had leads start coming in. But I want to share this on the front end instead of the back end because it validates everything else that I'm getting ready to tell you. If you look at those, number one, I think the first thing, and we didn't really have any smart Alex on here who said, well, those aren't middle market, right? Well, yeah, they are, because if you look at my definition of middle market being anywhere 25,000 in account premium to 500,000 in account premium, with the individual bands of 25 to 100, 100 to 250, and 250 and above, then you'd realize, at least in Florida, those are falling, they're $25,000, $30,000 in premium each, which gets us $2,500 to $5,000 in revenue for every one of them that we write. So they hit the sweet spot. I mean, the day that I don't get out of bed to write an account that brings, $2,000 or $3,000 of revenue into the agency that takes us 10 or 15 minutes to write it, I might as well hang up the cleats and call it a day. It's time to retire, because that is easy business to write. It doesn't require much effort, and it just comes in and comes in and comes in. What I noticed is this. Most of these, if not all of them, are owner operators. They're out in the field every single day. They are working when we are working. So when it comes time for them to handle and by the way, I owned a landscape company in my early to mid 20s. So I understand what these guys do at a operational level, because I was running equipment, from sun up till sundown. And when it came time to focus on the business, a lot of the time it didn't even get looked at. But when they do have time, it's in the evening. Agencies aren't open in the evening. So they're going to go to the internet and they're going to look to see where it is that they can get coverage. And if you have done your job from a content standpoint, you're going to show up. Okay. So we are not even doing any type of outbound prospecting on these types of business at all. So the first thing is owner operators. We know that they're not going to shop during normal hours. The second thing is, while they may not be true middle market, they are big enough to keep our attention. And if you write, even if it takes you 30 minutes to write one and you get, $2,500 to $5,000 in revenue, that's $5,000 to $10,000 an hour. If you have a steady flow that you're just consistently writing. And if you don't think that's possible, let me caution you, it absolutely is possible if you build the right machine to have that stuff come in. So what I did is I went into deep research on ChatGPT, and I basically wanted it to tell me everything I needed to know about the industry, the pressure washing industry. I wanted to know what the risk considerations were. I wanted to know about the insurance coverages. I wanted to know claims information. And I got all of this stuff. And then I asked it to build me a 12-week plan for content distribution, both on the website, but also the email copy. And I've not done anything at all on social for this. This is 100% been email or just putting blog content on our website. Haven't even done video. And I'm a huge proponent of doing video. We'll start, but I just wanted to test the waters before I went all in on this to see, is there really going to be opportunity here? And so deep research gave us everything we needed. It gave me the framework. And then we started creating the content around that framework. And we began to push blog posts to the website. And if you, I know people are nosy, but by the way, I know you're being nosy because HubSpot tells me every page of my website that you're on my Windows notifications. So when you guys are nosing around to see what I'm doing, I can see Cody just visited this, Kristen just visited this, Steve just visited this. I see it all. I mean, and I would encourage you to go look because a lot of what we're doing on there is working for us. So we started the blog content. We put out one commercial and one personal blog a week on the Florida Risk Partners website. Commercials Tuesday, personals Thursday, I believe. And 2 weeks in, we started having leads come in. I didn't really think much of it, other than, wow, that's pretty interesting. But I don't always see everything. But the cool part about us using HubSpot is the CRM is when the form is filled out, I get a notification that tells me somebody filled out my form and we have a new lead. Then it tells me what producer that lead was assigned to. And I can just, I eyeball it. And that's a horrible way to manage things, but it's the truth. The way my mind works, I will remember everything, believe it or not. And so 3 weeks ago, if a lead came in, I'm going to follow up just based on memory. But the reality is I could just go in and run a report in HubSpot and it would tell me everything that came in. So I started seeing stuff come in and it was pressure washers. And I'm like, wow, okay, there's actually something to this. And so the next thing I noticed was we are actually closing almost all of these when they come in. Like, it's crazy. I'm not going to tell you every marketing idea that I've ever had has been great. And I'm not going to tell you that we haven't fallen flat on our face. I think part of the reason of us getting this right is because I got my teeth kicked in on trucking. And I say that because when we first launched Florida Trucking Insurance, I went all in on pay-per-click advertising. And what I didn't know is that the majority of the leads came in starting at 10 o'clock on Friday night until midnight on Sunday. We had no process in place. We had no autoresponder or anything. And when we came into the office Monday morning, I'd spent about $3,000 on leads that were all dead. So you have to have a process around this stuff. So I didn't want to get into any of that. For people to get to that form, they would have had to have read a blog. So the way that our site is set up with the different forms on there, I know where they were based on which form they fill out. I have different landing pages and stuff that we've put, at different spots, but I know like which blog post originated it and all of that because it's important. If I see that that's working, then I want to double down and replicate that stuff. Now, having all these analytics is great, but if you're not going to use them to make marketing decisions, you might as well not spend the money because you could just do it by eyeballing it like I told you I kind of do. But we're at a point right now where we're getting, anywhere between 5 and 10 inbound leads a day on various classes that we've done this with. And so pressure washing specifically, we see anywhere between 3 and 5 leads a day. And this has only been running for 6 weeks. So the reason why the leads are easier to close is because the buyer intent is much higher. And the reason the buyer intent is much higher is because they've already consumed the content and we've already gained authority and trust from that person before they ever reach out. So when they do reach out for the quote, they already they're not going multiple places. Like I asked my producers, and I put Kyle specifically responsible for this, but I have another producer that's doing landscaping and another producer that's doing the pool equipment or pool servicing. So I asked Kyle, I said, how bad are you getting shopped around on price or whatever else? He said, I'm not. Like, they're literally coming to me and they're asking for, they're giving me the information, I'm quoting it, and we're essentially closing it over the phone. That's how I know he's writing them in like 10 or 15 minutes. And so I tell you that because I think this is something you don't hear enough about. And especially for me, because you're going to hear me talk about go do marketing drops, go call on middle market or whatever else. But the reality is there's that layer of business that can be somewhat transactional that you can bring in reasonable volume and not have to kill yourself going out to get in front of it. You can just sit back and let it work for you. And if you own the agency, you could scale your entire agency doing this, just going one class of business to the next. So, we started with pressure washing. Guess what else we found out? We found out that Main Street America would allow the pressure washers to soft wash roofs. Nobody else wanted to do that because of the water damage claims that could come from it. But Main Street America apparently hasn't paid out a bunch of those, doesn't have a problem with it. So they will write the people who do the soft washing of roofs. That's a huge thing in Florida. I don't know if it's as big everywhere else as it is here, but that's a big thing. And most of them do it from the ground. So it's not a difficult thing to get done on the workers' comp side as long as they're not going on the roof. But the GL is actually the one that's hard because of what I said. And there's a limit. Like, I don't know of any other market in the admitted markets that we operate with that will allow you to do soft wash roofing. So now what do? I can realize, hey, guess what? We can really go hardcore after the soft wash people because a lot of them we find are in excess and surplus lines. Now, I want to warn you, one of the things I'm concerned about is the longevity of these accounts. So you do, because it's inbound, you do get people that might be new coming into the business. And my biggest concern, and nothing has validated this yet, but my biggest concern, or what I'm watching very closely, is how many of these accounts make it till the first renewal, right? How many of them decide, oh, I'm going to open up a pressure washing company. I'm going to run out, buy this equipment, try and get a bunch of jobs. Then the revenue never comes. They don't pay their bill. Boom, insurance cancels. And now I have a charge. So I'm monitoring it very closely for that reason. But so far, all indications are that these have been pretty decent, and they're not all just a dude in a truck. Like we've got a couple of them that have fleets that are reasonable size at this point that are pushing 100,000 plus in premium. And I don't tell you that to brag. I tell you that because they grow. And if you consistently get interaction and people are constantly consuming that content, Google is going to keep showing it to people and more people are going to go. And that doesn't even count the whole word of mouth thing. So next thing I would tell you in the next iteration for us is we are building a Facebook group, Professional Power Washers of Florida, or Professional Pressure Washers of Florida. I'm going to create the group. I'm going to put some general stuff in there, and we're going to see how many of these people come in from Facebook and get into our group. Just like the same theory of doing the neighborhood groups for this stuff, except we're just going to do it for an industry. And I do find that these people are on Facebook quite a bit. Why? Because they're the guys I see in the frickin' neighborhood groups. So I know they know the group game and I know that they're active. So if we can build a group for a community around it and get people to come in there, we have a captive audience of our ideal prospect for this class. And you could replicate that across multiple vertical markets. And so just simply by putting the blog posts out, when I was headed to Oregon right before Mother's Day to speak, I Googled pressure washing insurance Florida, and we were number one. I Googled pressure washing insurance Tampa, we were number one. And so that tells me that the people that are going to Google are hitting our blog posts too. And I think that the blog at that time that was ranking at the top of the list, right below everything paid, was it was titled General Liability Insurance for Pressure Washers. So the lesson there is you don't have to have a sexy title. In fact, if you have a sexy title, you're probably doing yourself a disservice. If you have a title that says General Liability for Pressure Washers in Florida, not only are you going to have it in the anchor text of the blog, but it's also going to be in your slug, which is the extension that's on the web domain, which is going to help your SEO. And it's also going to be in the meta description that you can create. And so all of that stuff works. And I don't want to get hyper technical, but that's intentionally thought out. Okay. Now, admittedly, it's not intentionally thought out by me for the end product. What was thought out was me asking ChatGPT to give me the titles for these blogs that were SEO friendly, that were going to drive me the most impressions based on that. And if you look at it, it's really, really vanilla. If you've heard me speak publicly, I usually tell people a story about the number one blog post I've ever written was just titled "The Workers' Compensation Experience Modification Factor." That's it. Like, there wasn't any kind of a catchy title or anything to it. And the reason why is because I wanted people to type workers' comp experience modification factor or experience mod or some version of that into Google and have it pick up on that stuff and drive it back.